So take your piece of paper, run your hands over it, and you'll feel that the diagonal lines inside these little squares should feel a bit bumpy, like little ridges. And these long lines that go edge to edge, vertical and horizontal, when you run your fingernail through them, they should feel like a little dip. That's the right way up. So this is the way we start. You fold those long diagonal lines edge to edge, face to face, unfolding and folding as you go. Nice, sharp creases. Right to the edge. When you've folded all the horizontal lines, now you're going to fold the vertical lines, same direction, face to face, folding and unfolding. Nice sharp creases. What you'll see is that you have a little curved grid. When you've folded all your horizontal and vertical lines, you now need to fold all of the diagonal lines that occur inside of the squares into mountains. That is, they're going to be folded up. You'll see that they only are scored inside of each individual square. And for instance, the glide reflection pattern is here, and then it's here, and then it's here. So it's actually not side by side if the paper is facing in this direction. If you turn the paper, you'll see that the glide reflection pattern is here and then here. So the top row, if we're looking at it in this direction, they're all side by side, all of those little crosses. It doesn't matter where you start to do this, but you need to have a system so that you make sure that you fold every single diagonal line all over the sheet of paper. It's very important to fold these nice and crisp because that will make the formation of your Lumifold much easier in the next step. So I normally like to fold in a system of all in one direction first. So the whole paper, even the little half pieces at the end, need to be folded. Sometimes the edge of the table can help you. You probably couldn't see that, but I was leaning over the edge of the table or pushing your fingers underneath the paper to form a pinch fold. Basically, you need to fold these just inside the square. Do not fold them from edge to edge, otherwise your glide reflection won't work. When you have folded all of your diagonals in one direction on your paper template, turn your paper around and fold all of the diagonals in the other direction to form a series of little crosses. Again, I'm using the edge of the table to assist me to locate the fold and then just pinch up. Remember to always fold the little half scores, such as this, because that's actually just half of your pattern. So I'm going to do that all over the piece of paper. When you've finished folding your diagonals, you'll realise that you've created a series of little peaks all over the paper. Every diagonal line within the square has created a little roof or a little mountain all over your paper. And depending on which way you look at it, you can see those mountains more specifically than in other directions. We're going to form the glide reflection by folding now. You've put lovely creases in it. They're nice and sharp, and the main rule that you need to remember is that all of these long lines that you created first, that you folded into valleys, these long lines always remain pointing down, and the diagonal lines are the little roofs, and those will always be pointing up. So if you turn your paper around so that you're holding onto the short edge side by side, and you just tap the tension out of which is where the long lines are, then you can start to squeeze your paper together, and you'll start to see those roofs forming a little bit. And the main thing is to squeeze and let go and push down the parts of the paper that are meant to be going down, which are the long lines, and just encourage up the parts of the paper that are meant to be forming mountains, which are the diagonals. So I'm going in at one corner here, and I'm squeezing in, and I can see already a point where there's a problem, which is here. This is one of my long lines, so I just have to poke the tension out of that and come back in. It's a little bit troublesome, that one. It keeps wanting to poke up, so I'm just going to leave it there for a moment and squeeze in. Now I'm going to go back in and poke the tension out of it a bit more. So I'm starting from a corner of my paper, and I'm just creeping in and being in charge. You're the master of your materials when you're making these Lumi tools. I'm squeezing. This is a piece of paper, and I'm in charge. The main thing to remember is confidence, perseverance, and patience. I can see here there's a problem. This long line has to go down. So I just poked it down. It's basically trying to remember, the piece of paper is trying to remember that it's a piece of paper, and it's remembering to be flat. So what I'm doing is encouraging it to take a different form. And at the moment, it doesn't want to do that. The hardest part of this project is starting off. So you just have to have some persevering nature. Oops. I've got the first little bit, so I can kind of let go of that. So squeeze and let go, because it's going to remember it. It's going to remember that what I've just done is the glide reflection pattern. So if I show you exactly what's happening, each of these peaks is compressing, oop, there's that troublesome bit, poke that down, is compressing and folding into the center of the peak in front of it. That's why you've offset your glide reflection pattern. So it's going to collapse in on itself, and then it will start to remember this state. This is called memory fold origami, origami seki, which is mathematical paper folding. So you can see, because I've done some nice sharp creasing, once this paper starts to give in to me, it's going to find the pattern itself. So I just have to encourage and push and be confident with the paper to push it into its form. So I'm kind of nearly halfway. I'm going to give that a bit of a squeeze so it stays there. But have a look here. This is probably what's going to happen to you a few times. This bit here, this is one of my long lines, remember? So it needs to poke down. Watch this. So much tension in that piece of paper just right there. It's because all of this structure is now beginning to fold in on itself, and it finds it physically difficult to stay flat. For instance here, this is one of my peaks, but it's going in the wrong direction, so I'm going underneath it and I'm just poking it up, encouraging it up. This is one of my little half sections here, so this is actually going to be folded down. That's actually one of my long lines, so that has to be poked in, encouraged into that shape. Look at that. Like magic. So I'm giving it a squeeze. And what you're after, the Lumi tool, the cylinder, is a big, long series of mountain ranges, just like this. Give it a bit of a squeeze. let go. Very, very flexible. So these are all your mountains, and your valleys are almost invisible now. If I was to turn it over, it's a completely different structure. So you've completed folding and you're thinking, how does this turn into a cylinder? You probably want to actually conform it that way, which will make a very narrow, kind of flexible cylinder. But this is where some real magic occurs. We're going to rotate our paper 90 degrees and we're going to push it up so that its little teeth meet in the middle. You'll see that the pattern actually is the same in your zigzag on the edge of the structure. So this is where you're going to glue it together. You can glue this to another piece that you folded in order to get a wider cylinder, which you might be doing. But for this one and for the purposes of instruction, we're just going to glue this together, edge to edge. This is the adhesive that we're using. It's called Helmar 450. What we're going to do is to put a small bead of glue just on the edge. I'll get it coming out. Just on the very edge. This is called a bead of glue because it's just a little string on the very edge of your structure. There we go. And now, starting from the middle, I'm just going to meet and close the edge off. You'll see I get a little bit on my fingers and that's not too bad. It's okay. I'm going to close and pinch the edge together. It's very quick drying, so I can just position them all and then go along, travel along and make sure that they're accurately pinched together. So you don't need very much glue. I'm just rubbing this glue off. Coming back in. Try to be as accurate as possible here because it does create a better aesthetic when you've met these zigzags nice and neatly. Just pinching. And there you have your cylindrical shape. Just let that dry off a little bit more. And then if I was to, you can see the beautiful star down the bottom. It's very, very firm. Let me just focus that. And that is your cylinder, your Lumifold. Well done.